just let me know, and I've got my phone open. This began with a revelation about, I don't know, I'm going to say maybe 3 years ago. My mother had a gambling problem when I was growing up. I don't want to diss her, but she definitely had an issue with gambling. And it started with little things, card games in the house. She would have friends over, and they would play card games, and they would, just gamble small amounts in the card games. And then it expanded into bingo. And so she would go to bingo, and it started with one night a week. And it was kind of her way of, getting out from 8 kids. But then it started to expand more and more. And many nights of the week, she would be going to bingo. And unlike most of and again, I don't want to diss my mom. I love my mom. It really started to grow. And unlike most of the other players who would have a couple cards and it would be fun at the basement of the Catholic Church, a little fundraiser for the Catholic Church and a night out, she would have like 20 cards, and lose money on it, really. And I remember as a little girl even being trained to lie to my father. As we were driving home, my mother would actually come up with these pretty elaborate lies now that I look back. Okay, so we're going to tell Dad that in the third game on B5, I won $100, which of course she had not won anything, but that would be the story. And we would actually kind of practice it in the car on the way home. And then Lotto came. And she started buying the Lotto tickets and the scratch and, and all of that. And then Atlantic City opened. And that was it. She really got sucked in to the Atlantic City casinos. And actually, I remember being in labor for my first child. And I kept asking, where's my mom? Where's mom? Where's mom? And I was in labor for 24 hours. And I kept asking, hey, where's mom? And I never really got an answer. And no one ever really talked about it. But I found out later, my mom was in Atlantic City gambling when I was in labor for my first child. And I judged her for that. And when we judge others, it really does open a door. It really opens a door. And I remember thinking, wow, I can't believe the problems that the gambling caused. It really caused a lot of financial problems for my family. And I thought, wow, I would never gamble. I have never bought a lotto ticket. I have never played bingo. I've, never gambled at a casino. No, I think that's not true. We went once and played a slot machine, I think. But I thought, I would never gamble. That's terrible. She was a gambler, not good. And I really judged her for it. And it was a few years ago that God showed me that actually I was a gambler. And that I had a very serious gambling problem. And that the opposite of a gambler is a farmer. See, a farmer sows seeds. They cultivate those seeds. They pray. I mean, you've got to pray, right? You need rain. You need decent conditions. You need decent soil or to cultivate and nurture that soil. And then you hope to reap. The farmer expects to reap what he sows. If he sows tomato seeds, he hopes to reap tomatoes, and he works a little every day, that kind of little bits with consistency. Farming does take risk. I mean, a hurricane can hit, a tornado can hit, a drought can strike. You might not get enough sun or rain, there are some things as a farmer that are out of your control, and there are no guarantees. But believing for a harvest is faith, not gambling. Even though there are some things out of your control, when you are diligently doing everything that you know how to do and then believing God to make up the difference, that's not gambling, that's faith. But it's gambling, and I want to get ahead. The point I'm trying to make is that gambling is not faith. But foundationally, I want to say that faith is not gambling. Gambling is the opposite. The gambler hopes that God will do those things that God requires us to do. That's what a gambler hopes for. The gambler is hoping to plant one seed and reap another. Gambling, by definition, is to bet, to take a chance, and foolish risks. Gamblers want the results that others have experienced without doing the work required. And I've been a gambler all my life. This was such a revelation that I inherited this curse of gambling from my mother and from her family. The biggest gamble my mother ever took was that the man who sexually abused her wouldn't abuse her children. What a gamble. And she turned her children, again, out of her own brokenness. She turned, after being sexually abused by her father, turned her children over to his care, gambling that she was going to get a different outcome from the same seed. And that did not turn out well. Most of you know my story. I remember being 2 years old, maybe 3, absolute max, being turned over to my grandfather, taken down into a dark basement. I remember being locked in a cage. I remember being terrified. I remember the look in his eyes. I remember afterwards going into his bedroom, and my grandmother would stay she would sleep in the other room, or she would sit in the other room so as not to disturb him when he was abusing the children. And I judged my grandmother for that. And as I did the special blessings prayer and that whole journey over my grandfather and over my mother and even over my grandmother, I wept for my grandmother with such tremendous compassion. And she was actually the hardest for me to forgive. She was like right in the room. It's not even my mom taking the gamble that I'm sure maybe dad's changed. I mean, she was in the other room. And I had such a hard time with her. And then the Lord showed me, she was terrified of this guy. He was scary. I mean, she was living with the devil. And she was a mother of 8 kids, and she never had she had no career. She had no education. She's a Catholic woman. Divorce wasn't an option. She had no way out. And she felt completely powerless to stand up against this man and against his evil. And it was just that simple. And I wept for her, and that set me free. But we're not doing the special blessings prayer. And all of that, and all of my brothers and sisters, all of us, there were 8 of us, boys, girls, all of us were subjected to his. And then what happened is that then they all began acting it out on each other. And since I was the youngest, I had the most number of people acting out their sexual abuse on me. They all of them in turn just practiced on me what had been done to them. And we began to turn to drugs as a way to comfort, cope, and escape. And you guys know my story, right? How much I want to belabor this, but I was drinking straight shots of whiskey, in 8th grade. And part of that was, anyway, ironically, I have this tooth issue. We could pray about this. This is like in real time. I started doing whiskey because of my toothaches. I had a mouthful of calories because my kids would give me sugar. My parents gave me sugar. Wow. They gave me sugar water in my bottle to quiet me. And so I was sucking on sugar water, and it rotted out all my teeth. And we were poor, so I had an entire mouth of rotted teeth. And my father actually had a nickname for me. He called me maggot mouth. This is coming back to me now. This is to a curse. Because I just went to a dentist yesterday, and he says I need a 3rd root canal on a tooth that I've already spent over $5,000 on one tooth. This is happening in real time. Wow, it's amazing. I don't want to get too far off subject. So I actually started doing the whiskey. I poured whiskey in my mouth to deal with the pain of the toothaches. I've never talked about this before. Wow. And it wasn't long before I became addicted to my shots of whiskey and then wine. And I couldn't drink without getting drunk. And that was like toward the ending of grade school, going into, at the end of junior high. And then I started, as you guys know, drugs, cocaine, pills of all sorts. And our family just became outcast. And I've shared these stories. You guys have heard it about the birthday party. My next door neighbor had a birthday party and invited everybody but me. And then we decided to get revenge by inviting everybody in the class except her. And of course, no one came. And we had this big, all the potato chips and pretzels and cookies and candies and cakes for the party that no one came to. And when I realized that no one was coming to the party, what did I do? I ate all of the food. And from that moment on, whenever I would feel rejected, whenever I would feel like I wasn't invited to the party, I would binge eat. That's how we ended up with a 90-day renewal of thousands and thousands and thousands of calories until I was sick. And that's what I would do. It opened the way to an eating disorder. And what I want to talk about is that, I mean, this was all of these things that I've been through. They were the fruit of judging. You know, I judged my brothers and sisters. I took this gamble that I can blame my brothers and sisters because their choices, what they did to me, and then they were arrested and they were in and out of jail. And I spent my weekends going to visit my brothers in jail. And my brothers were on the front page of the newspaper. And that's why no one was allowed to play with us, because my brothers were on the front page of the newspaper being arrested as drug traffickers. And I'm like, my brothers, especially my brothers, have ruined my life. And I judged them and my sisters. And I thought, you know what? I can judge them and not be confronted with the same test. I'll never be a gambler like my mom. I'll never be a drug addict like my older brothers and sisters. I took the gamble that I could drink and not become an alcoholic like the rest of my family. I can experiment with drugs, but I won't become addicted like the rest of my family. And I shared with you about some of those things. I didn't realize that I had a gambling problem. I didn't realize how deep this was. And now as I look back over my life, this gambling issue is the root of every problem. You all know my testimony, how I went to this Christian camp and I became a Christian. And the day after, God said, oh, Donna, I'm going to take you all over the world and I'm going to use you in a mighty way for my kingdom. I'm like so excited. God put me in. And the first day of college, I met the young Muslim from Iran. He came to my evangelistic Bible study and I gambled. It'll be okay. I can date a Muslim and somehow it's all going to work out fine. Dating him is not going to be a problem. And then I married him and okay, I'm sure that somehow I'm going to have a godly marriage. And you guys all know my story. But I gambled and it created so many problems. The Bible says, do not judge or you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. But that won't happen for me. That's what I told myself, that I could plant these seeds of judgment and not reap them. And that was probably the biggest gamble of my life. And I just want to talk about some different ways that I believe this gambling spirit, and I believe it's one of the biggest issues in the church today. Some of the different ways that this gambling spirit might be showing up in your life and the ways that it has shown up in mine, so that we can begin to pray and guard against it. I can watch this, read this, listen to this garbage, and it won't affect me. I can have the TV going on in the background all day or secular music, and it's not going to affect me. Now, I'm the one person whose brain won't be affected by a steady stream of ungodly nonsense, and it's a gamble. Even today, one of my ongoing battles where this gambling spirit still operates in my life right now, as of this very moment, that I can mentally just follow the news and follow all this garbage going on in the United States, and it's not going to affect me. It's not going to frustrate me, and it does. Emotionally, we gamble that I can hold on to all of these hurts from my past. All the people who hurt me, all the people who betrayed me, all the people who weren't there for me, all the people I thought were going to support me and cheer for me and be my friend forever. And even though the Bible says that a bitter root destroys many, I will take the gamble that that's not going to be the case for me. Gamble that is destructive emotions won't take a toll on our spiritual, emotional, and physical health. And even again, with me following the news, I mean, the news is designed to make you fearful and frustrated. And then you have the advertisements. So fearful, frustrated, and then you have the advertisements which are designed to make you feel inadequate. And we swim in that and we think that we're not going to reap that, and we are. I am. There's grace, but God's grace doesn't wipe out consequences. We still reap what we sow. You plant tomato plants, you're probably going to get tomatoes. We can pray for crop failure, but that's not a wise life strategy. God loves us, but we don't want to take the gamble that God will constantly wipe out every logical consequence on our behalf. Decision gambles. This was huge for me. Oh my heavens. No need to just consult wise counselors. I never think a few steps ahead. I would take impulsive actions and hope that God would make everything work out okay. And I've been thinking about Sarah. I mean, this was kind of Sarah. Hey, I've got a great idea. I'll tell my husband to go sleep with someone else. I'm sure that'll be great. And then after the child is grown, okay, well, let's just get rid of the mother and the child. Let's get rid of my stepchild. I'm sure that'll work out great. 2,000 years ago, 2,000 years later, how's that worked out? We're still reaping that gamble that Sarah took impulsively. And there was a season in my life when I would say I actually remember impulsivity was my number one enemy. I would write these impulsive emails. That was a big one for me, and send it out, not thinking a few steps ahead. I get Facebook posts now. People go on and they just rant and hit you post on Facebook or Twitter or wherever. Impulsivity. I would go into Target and just fill the cart with all this stuff that I already had at home. Just fill my house with all this stuff. Impulsivity is a gambling spirit. Relationship gambles. This is a gamble that many women, even Christian women, take. I can deny my partner sexual relations and gamble that he or she is the one person who can withstand that level of daily rejection without eventually seeking comfort in the arms of another woman. And I know that women get very upset about this. But when the husband has an affair and the woman goes to church like, my husband had an affair. And maybe he's just a bad guy with major problems. And there's just absolutely no reason whatsoever. And we don't want to blame the victim. But is it possible that some of those women have been taking a pretty serious gamble and rejecting him? And then when finally he's like, I need to find somebody needs to want me somewhere, someone, then we act shocked. We're gambling. It's gamble. I know that wasn't nice, Donna. So say something. I guess I'm a John the Baptist sometimes. I'm going to move on quickly to this, but parenting gamble. I'm going to gamble that letting my kids just watch TV and all these electronic devices can let someone else take responsibility for their spiritual development. It's going to be fun. I took a gamble. Again, I'm always just looking where I'm at. I took a gamble. My youngest daughter is so strong in the Lord. She'd been homeschooled, and then she went to public school for a couple years, and she was shining such a bright light for Jesus. It went so well. She was admired. She stood her ground. Then she came back to homeschool, just loved the Lord. We had a room in our house just for her worship. She had her own. We had a big house. I had my own prayer room. She had her own worship room. She had all her Bible verses on the wall, and she would go in there and she would dance for Jesus and worship for hours. And then she went to the house of prayer in Kansas City, and she stood on the night watch, stood the entire time from midnight to 6 a.m. for 6 months. She's so strong, Lord. And she's like, I just feel like God wants me to go to a secular university. And I took a big gamble, and I regret it now that I let her go to a secular university. And wow, let me tell you, it has really taken a toll on her faith. And I'm just going to continue to speak to the seeds that were planted in the first 18 years of her life. But it's been tough. I'm telling you right now, it's really been tough. I mean, it's a struggle that I would say I'm in right now. Like, I'm stunned how much damage the secular university and these demonic, godless professors, how much damage they're doing. They're really doing a lot of damage. And wow, it is, I will tell you right now, it is really a gamble. And I would never take this gamble again. And I had even said this to other people, don't let your child go to a secular university. But she was so strong in the Lord. I thought, I'll never take her down. And she's a lot like me. And I went into a secular university and I loved it. To me, it was like, to me, it was a challenge. I like go in there and box, and it made me sharp, and it kept me on my toes. It kept me in strict training to go in and spar with the professors and spar with my classmates, all of that stuff. And to some extent, some of it has been the same for her, but in some ways it's taken a toll, and it was a gamble. And we are gambling. When we send our kids, our grandkids into these public schools and into these secular universities and think they're going to shine for Jesus. And I think it's a bigger gamble than I realized it would be. And I think it's a much bigger gamble than most of us realize, that the odds really are, they're still kids, and the odds are really, really against them. So just being real honest here. Is it okay? Am I allowed to just be this honest? The Barna Group USA Today reported 2 independent studies that 75 to 80% of children raised in American homes leave the faith after high school. And I took the gamble. They go off to college. That's what that is. And I took that gamble. I'm going to send my child to a secular university, and she's going to be among the 15% who walk away strong in faith. And I'm a little nervous about this right now. Some of us are spiritual gamblers. When I can neglect my personal time with God, 1 to 2 hours a week at church, that's going to be enough. I'm going to be a spiritual powerhouse. I take that gamble that a couple hours a week, that's going to outweigh the other 167 hours when we're steeped in the world's way of thinking. It's gamble. Here's one of my gambles, time gamble. Donna, it's just, I can be on social media and internet and wasting time on things that don't matter, and yet still fulfill my God-given destiny. Now, Facebook has been huge. It just said that I've been on Facebook. But today, it came up memories and said I joined Facebook 7 years ago. So it's not true. I joined Facebook in 2008. I was one of the first to be on Facebook. And I remember sending out emails to my list telling them what Facebook was and how and why they should join it, because I was going to do an online, one of the first people ever to do it. I was going to do an online study, Bible study, in a Facebook group in 2008, 11 years ago. But I think I'm kind of over Facebook. I think I'm kind of done. I'm probably going to shut down the Chapel Club Facebook group. I'm in the process of doing that, because rather than using the Facebook Live for these chapels, I want to use Zoom so that I can pray for you. I'll be able to talk to you, like I was able to do with GoToWebinar. And I think it's just going to be better, and just move away from Facebook. Because, it just can become just giant sucking sound. And the other thing that I'm going to talk about this weekend, and I think social media really feeds into this, I'm going to talk about this. We look at other people's filtered lives and we compare ourselves to them. And that's a gamble. That's really a gamble that we can sit and scroll through, looking into the filtered lives of the people around us, and that it won't stir up seeds of selfish ambition, competition, envy, all the things that the Bible says invite demonic chaos into our lives. For me, it's a huge gamble. It's a huge gamble. For me, it's a huge gamble. And I think it might be a big gamble for somebody, because fewer things can do more damage to our soul than the insecurity. It's so poisonous, so toxic. And few things foment that type of wow. Look how amazing their life is. I must not, the insecurity or envy or I've got to get more likes over here. I've got to get more people watching my Facebook Live. All that kind of that selfish ambition. That's right. It really feeds into that. And again, I'm not saying. Some people are strong enough to do it, but some of us aren't. And for some of us, it's just a gamble to go into that world and believe that we are not going to get swept into the spirit of the age, which is, putting on these and what do you call it? I'll give you an example. God gave me a vision just before I came here, and I'm gonna share some of this here in Brazil, and pray that God would give me exactly the right way to present it. Because there's no way I'm going to pull this level of honesty and conviction of sin with total strangers that I'm pulling with you guys, because you ladies are my inner circle, and I can be this blunt with you and get away with it. Maybe not as much. Maybe it's a bigger gamble than I think it is, that I can be this honest about sin. Maybe I can't. I don't know. But pray that God would give me exact grace for this room of total strangers, and to be able to present it in a way that their hearts would truly receive, and they wouldn't feel like, who invited John the Baptist? But the Lord gave me a vision, and I was walking into a church, and I had this beautiful robe, like a queenly robe. It's beautiful. And as I was walking in, everyone was kind of nodding and approving and admiring, and like, wow, yeah, she's looking good. Everything looks good. Wow. And underneath, I lifted up the robe, and underneath it was all black and thorns. And I was hurting myself. I was doing damage to my own soul. Putting on something that was not true. Trying to look good. Trying to present a certain image in the church. When underneath, I was hurting myself with all the stuff I've been talking about. The insecurity, huge. The pain of my insecurity. Well, what if they don't approve? What if they don't applaud? What if they don't like what I say? What if they don't want my autograph? What if they reject me? What if I'm not good enough? What if someone's better? All that junk on the inside. It's a torment. It hurts us. And and then it hurts our family, you see. That, and coming back to Sarah, it didn't, she's like, look, this doesn't look good. We had this promise, and we put it out there in faith. I'm going to have a child. God promised us I'm going to have a child. And I told that to a lot of people. And a lot of people are looking at me saying, so Sarah, I thought you were going to have a child. What on earth happened to that? Maybe God's punishing you. Maybe God doesn't like you. Maybe God doesn't approve of you. Where's the baby? And so she puts on something that looks like, hey, here's the baby. But inside it was tearing her apart. Because it was never God. It was never from the right motive. And I think we do that. And then it has damage, far-reaching repercussions. It's just such a gamble. It's just such a gamble. And this has nothing to do with time gambling. I'm running out of time, so better stop gambling, that I can just sit here and talk about this. But I think social media really stirs up this stuff. And we need to be careful and be wise as serpent and innocent as doves in the way that we use social media. Because I do think we need to be a light. We do. I was pregnant for Taranay. She's now 23. So 24 years ago, I was pregnant. And God said, the internet's going to emerge. It's going to be a very dark place. She even showed me gambling, pornography, showed me all of that. He said, but I want you to be a light in the darkness. And I think as Christians, we do want to shine, and we do want to be a light. And it is important. It does matter. But we have to make sure that we're not letting it get in us. And Jesus told us the way to shine is by clothing ourselves in humility. That's how we shine. And by doing everything without arguing and complaining, and keeping our hearts pure before Him. That's how we shine. We shine by going onto social media to be a blessing to others, and to edify them and lift them up, and to be a servant to others. That's how we shine. It's hard to find balance in all of this. We need to make sure that it doesn't become, that we're planting the right seeds on social media. That's what I'm trying to say. We want to plant the right seeds on social media. We want to be cultivating the right things for the right reason. And most of all, making sure everything that we're doing, that our heart is right before God, because motives are so huge. Motives matter. That seed that we plant needs to be surrounded in the love of God. It needs to be completely saturated in the Holy Spirit. And we are going to reap a harvest of impact and blessing. We need to make sure that we're planting the right seeds for the right reasons in the right soil. And all of that is about our motives and where our heart is. That's the soil. And be very, very careful that we are not stepping into that place that the enemy would have us, where we're doing the same thing. We're in that same vineyard of social media and the internet, but we're planting kind of toxic seeds and toxic soils because our heart is not right. And we're spending our time comparing ourselves. And am I getting the same number of likes? And am I getting the same number of, right? I hope that this is making complete sense. It's all about our heart. That's what God's looking at. That's the soil of our soul. And so the question is, are you a farmer or a gambler? Planting seeds, trusting God. And this I think is the thing, just being faithful in a little, being faithful in a little, being faithful in a little, Lord, what do you want to say to me and through me? I'm really camping on this social media thing because I think it's big. You just come to the Lord every morning and say, Lord, is there something that you're sharing with me that you want me to now share with the world? And I've had some really amazing seasons of this, like where I really got it right. I don't want to just camp on my mistakes. I'm honest with you about both. The things I've done wrong and the things that, God, I've gotten right. I can remember very specifically 2 months I lived in Fiji. And I would wake up every day and I'd be, Lord, I'm going to read your word until you give me something that's worth sharing. And every day God would give me, sometimes it was just 2 words, a few words, a sentence, and I would put it on social media. And my goal was to bless others and to feed others out of what the Holy Spirit had given me that morning. That was my only and entire motive. I wasn't doing it to get X number of likes. And specifically, I wasn't doing it to get more likes than someone else. That's when you're in trouble. I love you enough to tell you this. The minute you're comparing the number of likes that you're getting to someone else, you've got a problem. You're really gambling. You're really gambling, because that's puts you right dead center into the selfish ambition and the vain conceit that God says opens the door to destruction. And how do you position yourself for promotion? God opposes the proud, but he promotes the humble. He exalts the humble. He surrounds them with honor and imbues them with power and authority. That's what God cares about, your heart. Your heart. So if you can come into social media, you can come into the internet, take your message to the world from a place of deep humility and service and a genuine desire to impart to one another, others, what God is truly giving you, then I think it's a good thing, and I think it's a great thing. And I see people doing this extremely well with tremendous influence, and I want to see more people doing it. Good seed and good soil will bring a harvest. It will. And here's the promise from God, that the seed will grow. It will grow well. The vine will yield its fruit. The ground will produce its crop. And the heavens will drop their dew. I will give all these things as an inheritance to the remnant of this people. God desires to bless you. And this is kind of where, I think this is where I want to now go pray for you. I want to look at both sides. Is there some areas of your life where you've been gambling? And it's a spirit. I just bring it to the Lord and say, you know what? I've been gambling. I've been gambling. And on the other side, Lord, how can I be a farmer? I want to be a farmer. I want to harvest. I want to harvest. I want a harvest of impact and influence. I want that. I want promotion from the Lord. It's amazing how you can have exactly the same outcome, but for completely different reasons. And I've shared this many, many times, but it's just so powerful. I did this in the in the vessel class. I did it, and I've taught it in God Confidence. I've taught it some other places. How you can be in the exact same place in the exact same race, and actually even get the exact same outcome, but the process is completely different, and God cares about the process more than anything else. And the best example, the most powerful example ever of this in modern cinema is Chariots of Fire, where it contrasts Eric Liddell and Harold Abramson. And they're in the same, they're both runners, short distance runners in the UK in the same Olympics, and they both win gold, in similar events. I mean, on the outside, the harvest is identical, but the interior process is completely different. And if you haven't watched that movie or you haven't watched it in a while, it would be so powerful to look at it in the light of this comparison, that one lives his life, he's called. He's like, he's doing all the same things, working every bit as hard, but he's doing it for the glory of God. And constantly constantly look, what are your motives? What are your intentions? And that's like his ultimate test is, okay, what am I really doing this for? And it contrasts the other guy. He is in such turmoil the entire time. There's never any peace because his motives are wrong. And it has such a negative impact on the people around him, the people who love him, genuinely love him. And he's not a bad guy. He's not a bad guy. He's just a kind of an insecure guy. And that insecurity is not from God, because our security is not in us. Our security is in Christ. It's not about us. And so you can do all the same things, but God looks at the heart, and that's what God is concerned about. Why are you doing it? Are you a gambler or are you a farmer? And I just long to be a farmer. In just a couple things, and then I want to pray for some people. Two things that the Lord told me, and I meant to jot this down. I was reading it in my daily, it's somewhere in Proverbs. Anyway, it's be bold and diligent. And we really do need both. And sometimes I'm bold by personality, and so I'm willing to be bold, to be out there. But what about the diligence? We need both. Because if we're bold without being diligent, we've crossed over into gambling. Because our boldness, those moments when we step out and speak up, it better come out of a life of diligence and seed planting, so that the harvest is a reasonable expectation and not a gamble. It's our time with him, day by day, moment by moment. That's what God is watching for. And we've had this theme all year long. God is looking for someone to promote. And he is going to promote the one who is honoring him. Remember, when no one's watching, 2019, a now year. What are you doing when no one's watching? That is when the farmer, that's when the farmer does his work, when no one's watching. And then the harvest, maybe a lot of people, hey, look at that amazing harvest. Well, that harvest was sown when no one was watching. And the same is true for us. And the promotions in my life that I've seen from the Lord have been like, they look overnight, they look instant. And I'll close with this, and I really do want to just pray for some people. They've got 15 minutes to pray for you. I'm going to give you just a really personal example that illustrates all of this. Okay. A number of years ago, I had gone to the mission field. And anyway, and I arrived, and nothing of what I thought I was going to be doing, that the church had said was going to be arranged, like none of it was lined up. I'm like, okay, why am I here? And I went one day, I got up, and I was so discouraged. I just felt so, anyway, you can imagine all the emotions. Why am I here? And I went and sat under a tree. And they have these like makeshift little coffee shops. So there's this big, huge tree, and there's this guy with a little cart by the side of the road, selling coffee. Probably dangerous to drink. But anyway, so I bought a little coffee, and I'm sitting under this tree on a little makeshift table. And I'm like, Lord, what are you doing? Why am I here, and what are you doing? And it was one of those moments where it's like, well, what am I doing, Donna? Well, really? I'm running the universe. Don't even worry about what I'm doing. The question is, what are you doing? When you don't know what I'm doing, what do you need to be doing? When there's no grand opportunity for you, say, I'm just on it. I thought that I was going to be going there, and I was going to be teaching, and I was going to be doing this, and people are going to be asking for my autograph, and it is going to be great. I wanted that. And then this is a promotion for me here. And God just said, okay, so why don't you worry about what you can do? Don't ask what I'm doing. What is it that you need? What can you be doing when you don't know what I'm doing? Now, I've done a full teaching on this, what to do when you don't know what God is doing, but I'm just making a specific point here about the outcome of the story. And so I got a napkin from the coffee guy, and I found a pen from somebody else, because God knows you couldn't carry a purse in this country unless you wanted to get mugged. So I literally on a napkin with a borrowed pen. I was scrambling, and I came up with I think like 20 things that I could do when no one was watching. And you know what each of those things were? They were seeds. They were seeds. They were seeds. They were seeds that I could plant in the soil of my brokenness and humility. That I could plant in the soil of my brokenness from a heart of humility. That says, no, I'm not going to do any great thing, and no one's going to applaud, and no one's going to ask for my autograph. Meanwhile, day after day, day after day, I'm going to wake up, and I'm going to do some combination of these 28 things when no one's watching. And that's exactly what I did. And I didn't understand it, and it was kind of sad. It's kind of discouraging, but I did it anyway, day after day, day after day. And it wasn't until a couple years later that I really realized the magnitude. That while I was humbling myself and trying to be diligent and faithful with a little, planting seeds, being a farmer, that God was positioning me for such a promotion that I didn't even know it was happening. My publisher stuck a cover on a book I wrote 20 years ago and re-released it. And it's resulted in massive promotion. I mean, I just saw that book. And God did it all. I just saw it at the Atlanta airport, the busiest airport in the entire world. I just checked it yesterday on Google. It's the busiest airport in the entire world. And my book is there in between C.S. Lewis and Billy Graham. And God put my books into grocery stores. And now I just found out it's in Walmart. I didn't even know it was happening. God did it. And I believe God will do the same for you. That if he what does it? He opposes the proud. That's a heart condition. But he exalts the humble. That's a heart condition. The humble person is like, God, I don't know what you're doing. I didn't know how to, give myself a promotion. I can't find anybody around me who wants to give me a promotion. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a farmer. I'm going to wake up every day, and I'm going to plant good seeds, and I'm going to water those seeds in prayer and in the Word of God. And I'm going to seek to keep my heart as clean and clear as I can before you. And I'm not going to nurse grudges and hurts. I'm not going to indulge this frustration and this disappointment. I'm going to give it all to you and just trust you, God, that you love me and you've called me, and there's something you're going to do. I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know where. I'm not responsible for it. And promotion from the Lord has nothing to do with how many likes you get on your Facebook page. Promotion from the Lord He is the one who gives the exponential harvest. but he gives it in response to faithful seeds sown in a soil of a heart that is humble and contrite before him. That's what he's looking for. Anything other than that is a gamble. Anything other than that is a gamble. The biggest gamble we take, I believe, is indulging this whole insecurity thing. That's such a gamble because it's a toxic soil. It's a toxic soil. And sowing seed in a soil of insecurity that tolerates, that mixes in comparison and approval seeking, that is the biggest gamble that most of us who love God and really want to make a difference in the world, I think it's the biggest gamble we take, putting good seeds into that type of soil. Yeah, wow. And that we're still going to get a beautiful harvest for the Lord with it. And I'm living proof that no, you won't. Doesn't matter how good the seed is, doesn't matter how many seeds you plant, unless that soil is a humble and contrite heart that seeks just to serve. It is the ultimate gamble. Because God clearly says who he promotes. And he promotes the one who's humble and contrite before him. The one who comes to serve, not to be served, but to serve. That's what God promotes. And in dramatic ways. I've watched him do it in my life and in the lives of people around me. But God would just pluck you up one day and just put you wherever he wants. No one can stop him. No one can stop him. That's the crazy thing. No one can stop him. Let me pray for some of you. I'm trying to figure out how to, okay, good.